You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast and check us out online at beardedtheologians.com. You're not listening to the National League Divisional Series. You're actually listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
Go Rockies. This week on the podcast, we're not really going to talk about the National League Divisional Series.
Although I'd like to.
We're going to talk about pain and suffering in the book of Job.
I mean, we could talk about who didn't make the playoffs this year and pain and suffering.
Yeah, those Montreal Expos are really struggling.
They're not a club anymore. All right, we've derailed this podcast already.
It's already off the wheels. But so this week, Zach and I were talking in our pre-session, and one of the things that we floated around is that Job appears in the lectionary for the next 4 weeks, and it's kind of been a little bit attractive to us. And so we're going to kind of wrestle with that for the next 4 weeks. And so as we look at Job, Zach, what were some kind of things that came out to you as we read this week's Job reading?
Well, you know, Job is always one of those tough books because it starts out rough, kind of like this podcast does sometimes. Job is one of those books that we look at, and it's why do bad things happen to good people, right? And it's kind of the poster child for that question, and a lot of other questions come up in Job of where's God in this? Where does God allow bad things to happen? Does God make bad things happen? What does all of this have to do with anything, with us? And are we facing the same fate as Job? And there's a lot there. The lectionary readings today are Job 1:1 and then chapter 2, 1 through 10. And I mean, that just kind of gives you a picture of who Job is. And then Job loses property and his children. And then his wife comes in to the picture in chapter 2, verses 9 and 10. This is what she says. Then his wife said to him, "Do you still persist in your integrity? Curse God and die." But he said to her, "You speak as any foolish woman would speak. Shall we receive the good at the hand of God and not receive the bad?" And that kind of brings up that question of where's God in all of this? Are we willing to just receive the good, or is there bad as well? And so that complicates this question, our ideas and theology about God, of where's God at in all this? Does God only give good? Does God get out bad? Or is God good and God present in the bad? What is this? Which is it, either or? Is it both? I don't know. I mean, maybe I do. But I want to leave some room for you to wrestle with that question. Because there's a lot there. And I think it's something as human nature that we wrestle with a lot. And when we talk to people out in the world, that's usually one of the first questions that comes up about God is, why does God let bad things happen? Why did God let this happen to me? God did this to me. And it usually comes from a place of hurt and grief and anger, which Job had all right to be hurt and grieving and angry in these moments. And yet he's still using the word his wife used and still remains with integrity. Won't curse God and die. Won't give up. And I find that really interesting. There's a lot there.
Yeah, there is a lot there. And, as I was thinking about this, and as we were talking, the thing for me, it is that section of, we start off with, this is Job. He's from the land of Uz. And, right. He's this great man. He has many things. He's very good. He's very righteous. And then it hits the fan fairly quickly.
Yeah, real quick, like verse 6.
And so, he deals with a lot. And to back up on what you were talking about in verse 7, where, the adversary departed from the Lord's presence and struck Job with severe sores from the sole of his foot to the top of his head. And Job took a piece of broken pottery to scratch himself and sat down on a mound of ash. Job's wife said to him, "Are you still clinging to your integrity? Curse God and die." Job said to her, you're talking like a foolish woman. We receive good from God, but not receive also the bad. And all this, Job did not sin with his lips. I think of, like when we're going through something and that friend just says, why don't you just do this? And it will be better. And sometimes that works, but a lot of times it doesn't, because maybe the situation's not well known, or maybe because of our integrity, or maybe because of what we're clinging to, we can't let go.
Right.
And I've been thinking a lot about when we talk about suffering and why does God allow suffering. That's a hard question. I don't think, I think we have to acknowledge where God is in the midst of suffering, and that God never abandons us and leaves us. And some of the things that the outside sources, and pay attention to how the outside sources are responding to Job and Job's persistence and staying true to his faith, is that they're questioning, like, why is he doing this? And it's kind of, thinking about like the alcoholic that like still goes to the bar and buys the $2 drink when he has no money, but he's going to use the last of his $2 to continue to get that high. We want to intercept, and that's, I think that's what his friends are. It's like, man, this is his fault. He's been a bad person. And I think we have to pull out the idea of, that sin happens because you are a bad person. I think it's a response. Like, I don't know. I see it in my head and I understand it, but it's one of those things where it's like, we have to understand. I think one, we have to understand what sin looks like, and we have to have a stronger understanding of what sin is. And that sometimes things just happen either because of outside forces, meaning like, we can look at events like the Holocaust, and we can look at the fascism that happened there, or we can look at, like, when the United States dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, and and those horrible things, and we can talk about that, and we can look at those things and those outside forces, and we can acknowledge those. But when something happens to us, may it be a tragic event, sometimes things just happen because they happen. Cancer happens because of outside environmental forces that come together into your body. And we can look at that and examine that. And I think
it's important to note on sin that their concept of sin was, you've done something wrong, so now you're being punished, or somebody around you, your parents, whatever, you're unclean. This is your fault. Right. So because you're being punished here, you must have done something.
It's kind of the, Joe, you can tell us, just tell me what you did. Like,
we're your friends, right?
Like, we're close. Like, we know each other. We've known each other for a while. Like, come on.
I like to think that it was probably a little more frantic than that. Hey man, tell us what you did so we don't do it, because this sucks. But you're right. His friends come around him. All of these people come around him, and they're like, man, just give up. And when we look at our own lives, what is the community around us telling us? Is it just yes, man? Just give that up, or what you're doing is right. Go and spend the rest of your money and put it in, a slot machine, or go drink it away, or go buy something, $100 pair of shoes that you don't really need, but whatever it is, whatever that, and that just dealt a whole lot with money, but there's other things for sure. It's whatever it is. If somebody's justifying that poor behavior, that's sin. That's us not living into the resources and stuff that we have to take care of ourselves, to take care of our family, to take care of those things. And that's breaking community with God and with people, and therefore there's sin there. And if people are justifying that, man, just keep doing it. It's fine. You'll be okay. That's not good either. But if you have other people on the other side, just run away. Why don't you just curse God and die? Just give it up. That's not a good medium either, right?
Well, and I think that's part of the problem. It's how we respond to someone who's suffering. I think that's a good question for us. How do you respond to someone who's suffering? Do you and I imagine this, imagine if Job's wife, instead of saying what she said, imagine if she would have just walked up to Job and just sat down in the ashes with him and just said,
just gave him a hug.
Yeah. Well, I probably
Homeboy
would.
Job needs a hug.
He probably doesn't need a hug because he's got all these sores on him, and there's some
I think a
sanitary.
hug would be a lot better than curse God and die.
More like maybe a handshake because his hands aren't hurting. Like I don't know if I'd want to embrace him if he's got sores up and down
I don't disagree.
There's
and
some sanitary
because he was dirty, right?
Yeah, I mean,
still,
if we want to go to the Jewish cleanliness laws, he would definitely be dirty. And I think that's it. It's like we have to pay attention. I think, as I'm thinking about this, how I'd preach this week is asking the question, how are you willing to sit with people who are suffering? How are you? Because I think that's it. Like, so let's go a little bit Jesus here on this, is that Jesus came and sat with us and showed us how to make it through and showed us how to live and to love and to be present. And that we can't just, like Jesus doesn't go around just saying, here's what you need to everybody. He didn't go to everybody and just say, here's what you need to do. A lot of times when people would come to him, they came to him and Jesus said, hey, what's up? And they'd be like, blah, like, here's my pain. And Jesus listened and then helped.
Right.
And maybe that's what we need to do first, is listen to their pain.
Right.
And sometimes and here's the thing that we have to really wrestle with and really bite our tongues on, is that sometimes we won't have the answer for their pain.
Right. Sometimes there is nothing to say.
And sometimes we don't need to say anything. It's just about being present.
I think we as people, when folks around us are grieving, we try to have the right thing to say, right? Especially when somebody passes away. We want that right phrase to make them feel better. None of that crap makes anybody feel any better. We need to quit saying those things.
Well, I think the first thing should be is that before we speak, we should be quiet.
Right. And that's the thing. We don't listen, right? We don't listen to the grieving heart. We just go in knowing these people are hurting, knowing that our friends and family are hurting, and we want to say the right thing so that they won't hurt anymore. And really, there's no right thing to say. There's just listening. There's being quiet and hearing that heart and giving them a hug or giving them space or giving them what they need in those moments, rather than, it's just they're in a better place. That doesn't help. I'm sorry. It really doesn't.
So I think this week, I think you can think about, one, I'd encourage you to read the book of Job and get a good Bible commentary. There are a lot out there that you can look at. I would encourage you to do that. Look at your study Bible, dig in a little bit on Job, because there's some good stuff in there that we can learn from. I think the big thing is, how do we respond to suffering? How do we respond? Not God's response. But I think when we pay attention to what our response is, it will be, I think we can grow out of that. And I think we can even be even healthier, and we're not going to be, stuck between a rock and a hard place. This week, think first before you speak. I think that would be healthy.
Listen.
Could you imagine if we did that? Could you imagine if we did that in some of the things that we've got going on right now in our world?
Yeah, be huge.
And so we want to encourage you to think first before you speak. This is Pastor Appreciation Month, and Zach and I wouldn't be the pastors if we it wasn't for other pastors. And so I think each week we'll probably lift up a pastor who we're thankful for, and we can tag them and maybe they'll share this. Get more people to listen to us. So I'm thankful. One of the big pastors in my life that kind of helped me through some times, and she was my youth pastor first, but she kind of helped me navigate the process, was Reverend Lisa Beavers, who's serving in, I think she's in Fairview now, Fairview United Methodist Church here in Oklahoma. She was my youth director, and just enjoy still talk to her quite a bit today, but I'm very appreciative of the ministry that she had that inspired me to do what I'm doing. And so
nice. I would lift up retired Reverend Gorton Smith. Man, he came in, he retired the same year that I started campus ministry there in Las Cruces, and it was a great time to get to know him. I was still, still getting my chops and learning and trying to figure out what this call to be a pastor is. And he really, really helped refine that. And not only in the pastor ways, but in personal ways, through his own stories, through his own, reflections and what's the word I'm looking for? Confessions. he's very honest with, this is the pastor that I was. Here's some things I did well. Here's some things I didn't do well. Here's if I could go back and do these things differently, I would. And taught me a lot about how to be a pastor, how to be a husband, how to be a father, and how to still be me in all of this. And I'm grateful for that. Matter of fact, he was the first pastor that I had worked with that recognized me as a colleague. And I had been in ministry for a long time. So that goes a long ways.
So we're thankful for all those pastors. And so if you're thankful for your pastor, you can go on our website if they've got a great beard, or if you want to play a joke on another pastor that may not have a beard, you can go on our website at beardedtheologians.com and do all that great stuff and buy a coffee mug or a t-shirt or a hat or something like that and share it with them. But we're thankful for you and our listeners. And so keep on listening, keep on sharing, and keep on commenting on our awesome connection with Castbox app to listen to the podcast. If you don't listen to that, listen to other things. Please feel free to make comments or let us know what's going on. So for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold, and Rocktober.
We hope you've enjoyed the conversations that we've had today on the Bearded Theologians Beardcast, and we'd encourage you to continue those conversations online at beardedtheologians.com or on our Facebook page. We also hope that you pick up a couple of coffee mugs to satisfy your coffee mug collection. Have a good day.